Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's finally over. Game of Thrones has come to an end. All good things must come to an end eventually. And before we get into the top moments of the last ever episode of Game of Thrones, I just want to say thank you for checking out my channel, possibly subscribing, all that kind of stuff. Being through this journey in Season 8 with me honestly means a lot. I'm going to give a couple of my thoughts right at the end of this, so again, stick around if you want to hear that. At number 10, I have Tyrion seeing Jaime and Cersei. So we open up this episode after the complete destruction and massacre of King's Landing that Daenerys Targaryen did. We have Tyrion walking through the ash. Tyrion walks through some of the main buildings that he's been through in the past seasons, being different hands of different kings and queens, and he walks down to see if Jaime and Cersei did actually escape, and he sees Jaime's golden hand in the rubble. He removes some of the stones and rocks, and he sees Jaime and Cersei's face. And this was one of the most powerful scenes in the whole episode for me, and it was literally the first one. There was no words, there was no talking, but the emotion portrayed through Peter Dinklage's acting was phenomenal, and it set the tone for the rest of the episode. Number 9, we have Dany's speech mixed with Tyrion throwing the hand of the Queen badge and being imprisoned all in one. First of all, I just want to say how cool was that shot with Dany where Drogon comes up behind her with his wings. That was insane. Daenerys gives her speech, and honestly, I thought that she was going to be a little bit more remorseful in this episode about what she's done, but I guess they kind of had to keep her the way that she was to make her death, very necessary. What I thought was funny that Jon Snow was kind of listening, and obviously he can't understand what she's saying until she mentions Winterfell, and he's like, huh? But afterwards, Arya has a little chat with Jon, and then there's a really long scene with Tyrion and Jon having a chat when Tyrion's imprisoned. And both of them are planting seeds with Jon about what he needs to do, what is necessary. He needs to kill Dany. For some reason, Jon kind of tried to defend her a bit. I think he was truly conflicted in his emotions and the way that he thought. They both said that Jon is a threat to her because he is the true heir to the Iron Throne, and he was willing to lose his own life for honour, just like Ned would. But when Tyrion mentioned Sansa and Arya, Jon just couldn't sacrifice them too. Shout out to the scene with Tyrion and Jon though, that was great. As well as how Tyrion threw his Hand of the Queen badge down the steps. That was baller. Number 8, we have Jon kills Dany. It was gonna happen. I think it was the best way that Dany could have died. It had to be Jon. Something that I and many other people knew that was gonna happen, but it was still a great moment. It was in the throne room, so we finally got the scene from Dany's vision. We got that payoff with the room covered in ash, or what people thought was snow at the time. We now know, obviously, it's ash. When they kissed and he was like, you're always going to be my queen, I genuinely thought that he had made the decision to support her and follow her, but then obviously not. Lil stabby stab, and Daenerys went down. So Daenerys' death and her corruption arc together, I guess, were the third big twist that George R.R. Martin told the showrunners. And honestly, I think it was done in a pretty good way. The stories that they chose to follow, I don't think they could have done much better in rounding them off in the first half of this episode. I do think the show would have benefited from having a 10-episode season though. Number 7, we have Drogon destroys the Iron Throne. I almost thought he was going to burn Jon, then he turns to the Iron Throne and wrecks it. Drogon has lost his 2 siblings in Rhaegal and Viserion, and his mother, basically as a result of the Iron Throne and Dany's obsession with the Iron Throne. Dragons are supposed to be really, really intelligent creatures. So I think that he would have figured out that obviously Jon had stabbed her. I think Drogon realised that it was Dany's own fault and the fault of the Iron Throne, which is why he was mad and he destroyed the Iron Throne. The throne was created by Balerion the Black Dread's fire, and now it's destroyed with Drogon's fire. A little Easter egg to the book readers, Dany says that when she was younger, she thought that the throne was going to be absolutely huge with thousands of Aegon's enemies' swords burnt down. And in the books, that is what the throne is described as. But obviously in the show, it wouldn't really make sense. It would be very hard to film that and create that. Number 6, we have the meeting of the Lords. So loads of the Lords in Westeros are meeting in the Dragon Pit. This is after Dany is dead. I think it's a few weeks later because Grey Worm brings out Tyrion and he's got a bit of a thicker beard. And Tyrion actually mentions that all he's had to do for the past few weeks is just to think. And they come up with the idea that they should vote for the king or queen instead of having them born into it. Edmure Tully stands up and Sansa just goes, "Uncle, sit down," which I thought was quite funny. And then Sam almost creates a democratic government, but everyone just laughs at him. And then they decided that going forward, the king or queen, that this is how they're going to decide who's going to be the king or queen. by the meeting of all the lords in the same place and a vote. So number 5, we have Sansa being the queen in the north. Sansa decides that the north will be an independent state like it has been in the past, which I think is a great ending to Sansa's story, going from a little innocent girl being abused by so many to being a strong queen in the north. Queen in the north. Queen in the north. And out of all the characters rounding off their journeys, I think Sansa's ending is probably one of the best. Number 4, we have Bran the Broken. Now this is the part that I'm not sure how I feel about it. The bookmakers were right. They said right at the beginning of the show that Bran was the odds-on favourite to be the ruler, the king of Westeros, which I always thought throughout the whole show, even throughout this season, even throughout this episode, that it just wouldn't make sense. It doesn't feel right that Bran would be the ruler. So I don't know, it just doesn't seem right. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. I understand that out of everyone, it kind of makes sense that it would be Bran because there's no one else really that it would seem fitting to be apart from Jon, but obviously he doesn't want it, so it wouldn't be fitting to him. But I don't know, Bran the Broken is the king of Westeros. Number 3, we have the goodbyes. Now this choked me up a little bit, I'm not going to lie. It was a bit random, it kind of didn't really seem to fit. And obviously, with the pacing of the show, like I said before, a couple more episodes would have been great. But when Jon was saying goodbye to Sansa, Bran and Arya, made me choke up a little bit when he was like, you got Needle, haven't you? And Arya says that she's going west of Westeros, which is a callback to something that she said in the previous seasons, saying that she was going to go there. Jon is basically told that he has to take the black, which again doesn't really sit that well with me. Jaime Lannister in the past killed Mad King Aerys, and he was let off of all his crimes by Robert Baratheon because obviously it was the right thing to do, and Jon killing Daenerys is the right thing to do as well. So Bran should have excused him of his crimes, but whatever. Number 2, we have Brienne finishing Jaime's Kingsguard page. We also have a new small council with Bronn being the Master of Coin, and he also got Highgarden. Davos is the Master of Ships, Sam is the new Grand Maester, which is awesome, and Brienne and Podrick are in the Kingsguard. So all these characters that we know and love, they kind of get like a nice payoff, a nice ending for them. And Sam brings out a Song of Ice and Fire book, which is cool, we talked about it in the past, but the way that they did it, it was a little bit cliche. Going back to Brienne finishing Jaime's Kingsguard page, she makes sure that Jaime gets what he deserved on his page, which is a nice ending to his arc, I guess. It completes and shows his redemption arc to an extent, but it still would have been better if Jaime sacrificed himself, I guess, for Brienne and fell at the Battle of Winterfell, and then she was writing about him after that, instead of him just going back to Cersei, making his redemption arc worthless. Bonus moment now, boys and girls. Ghost finally got a pet. The good boy, he was good until the end, and he didn't get a pet in one of the previous episodes, and everyone was outraged on the internet. But now, Jon goes back north, and he gives him a pet. Yes! At number 1, we have A Time for Wolves, which was originally the name of the last book. They changed it to A Dream of Spring. We can see why it's A Time for Wolves now, as we have Sansa, the Queen in the North, Bran, the King of the Six Kingdoms. Arya is sailing away west with the Stark sigil on her, and Jon has finished his arc in killing Daenerys. Time for Wolves. The Starks have done it, I guess. Jon's walking north of the wall with the wildlings, which is the last shot in the show. Maybe that means Jon's joining them north of the wall. He's going to go out there instead of being with the Night's Watch. And the song in the background is actually like a remix of the Game of Thrones theme tune mixed with the Stark theme, which was quite cool. Jon's ending to me feels a little bit weird. Like, I think it would have been better if Bran excused him of his crimes and then Jon went north of the wall, kind of exiling himself. So it was his own decision. I feel like that would have been a little bit better. But he doesn't have to bother with politics anymore, which is something that he always hated anyway. He's going where he's been happy in the past. He's got Ghost with him in Tormund. So where they're walking is actually in the Haunted Forest, which was the first scene in the first ever episode where they see the White Walkers. There was also a little shot of some green grass growing, or it might have been like a plant or something, which signifies the start of spring, a dream of spring. But Game of Thrones is over. Like I said at the beginning, all good things must come to an end. I feel like there's a little emptiness in me right now. And I talked about this on a podcast that I just finished doing, so I'll link this in the description. The first half of this episode was brilliant. I don't think they could have done it any better, really. Rounding off character arcs and stories that they'd come up with. I'm not saying that the stories themselves were perfect, like a lot of people have been saying online. But the way that they did it with the stories that they chose was brilliant. But then the second half, obviously I still liked it. I love Game of Thrones, but it did leave me feeling a little bit empty. It left me feeling like that shouldn't be the end. It left me feeling like there should be another season next year and I should be looking forward to it. I don't know. But would there ever be a full-on conclusion that would feel like it would be fully round off and completed? Maybe we'll find out in the books. I don't know. But again, thank you so much for clicking on this video and listening to this one. There'll be more Game of Thrones videos in the next week or so. I'm not sure what exactly yet, but there will be. Thank you so much. Hit that like button if you want to support me or you've enjoyed my videos this season. And I'll see you all on my next one.